Hey everyone, it's Ellie and Holly here from Feminine Warrior Mindset, and we're here to talk to you today about one of the key hurdles preventing women in tech from progressing their careers. From our recent research with over 50 women in tech, and one of the big hurdles was women having a lack of balance in their career. So Holly, can you give us a bit more detail about what lack of balance meant?
Yes, first let me grab my cup of tea because this is one that is near and dear to my heart, as it probably is to yours and everyone listening, which is work-life balance. We saw in our interviews that it broke into two categories. One was the systemic work-life balance issues. So some of those, Ellie, were things like maybe international travel, keeping you out of home and out of the office for long, long hours, and then coming back to everything waiting for you. Also systemically, when women would return from things like a maternity leave, where they would receive different treatment. And so therefore there would be a different sort of like mental load that would come on in terms of coming back, having a new change in life, right? You've changed. And
Yeah,
then on top of everything else, now you're being expected that you're going to do less without anyone really asking you. And you and I were, saying like in this day and age, many times these things were not borderline illegal, but really and truly like against policies, against internal practices that would be what we would want from organizations. So the thing is that these are unique challenges that women were reporting that they were facing. So it's not that, work-life balance isn't an issue for all employees where you have very fast-paced environments where you're working long hours. It's just that some of this was leading into some of the other hurdles that we've identified. So things like self-doubt, right? There's a self-doubt strain. Things like the mental load where you're so like heavy with the idea of not just work, but carer responsibilities. Yeah. And
yeah,
also just this feeling like I need to do it all. I need to do my best. Some of the sort of feelings like that, where I have to prove myself double to get ahead. Um, boundary bottle, boundary bottle, boundary battles are where our like women leaders would say, I thought I set clear boundaries. But
yeah,
because of the mental load and other things, the boundaries were not as clearly set or they weren't, honored. And then living in a bit of a yes culture where it's easier to say yes all the time if perhaps you are male or you are single or you don't have care responsibilities.
yeah,
And then last but not least is that this idea of like when you don't have a clear sort of idea of your career trajectory, many times you get into these roles or you say yes to things without sort of having that base of like, no, I'm not doing this, this is not on purpose.
yeah,
Sort of delegating in a way that can help like lessen that mental load, so you end up getting overwhelmed by sort of the volume of things. Is there
yeah.
anything left out, Ellie, or what would you add to this in terms of maybe a story that you could tell that brings this to life?
Yeah, so I interviewed a lady called Charlotte. Obviously, we've changed her name for privacy purposes, but she was exactly like this, right? So she'd come back from maternity leave, and after about 6 months, she was still juggling being able to manage childcare pickups and drop-offs with her career. And she told us a story to say she's often like running out the door at like 4:30 p.m going, oh my God, if I don't get to daycare on time, I'm going to be fined because that you have to get there on a certain time. So she'd be running, like literally driving, going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then getting to the daycare, literally putting down her phone because she's on a conference call. And then she'd be like with her child, but then still not really switched off from the workday and then not being present with her child. But then she'd be stressed afterwards saying, oh my God, but I wasn't present with my child. They'll hate me when they're older. So that whole mental load that you talked about is really exacerbated there. But there's also no break for her to mentally turn off in between and really switch into carer mode versus work mode. They're very different parts of the brain. So that just leads to the overwhelm. And the other thing is that you mentioned about doing it all. She also didn't want to delegate to her team because she felt like she's dropping the ball and that people wouldn't think she was competent anymore. And they would then blame it on her having to have these caring responsibility. So then again, that led to more self-doubt, more boundary battles, and really, again, that yes culture where she could say no in a way that's still with grace. So, I mean, this is a typical story we hear every day. And the impact on this is her mental load was going, like she could never turn off. So at night she was waking up all night. Everything was really heavy. She was stressed. It was actually causing a lot of anxiety, as well as, she was getting sick more often because her immune system was down. And, she wasn't able to set boundaries at home or at work, which then made her feel like she was failing at everything. And she was like a hamster on a hamster wheel, not getting off. So, Holly, how would you rewrite this story for somebody like Charlotte if we could, help them?
Yeah, I want to really be sensitive here to say that Ellie and I we have had elements of Charlotte's experience in our lives, right? We're both working mothers. And there's two pieces here. And one I want to just identify is that there's nothing to be done to fix Charlotte or anyone else,
No.
but there are systemic ways in which organizations can really start to educate all managers,
Yeah.
and create more of a culture of understanding that, again, it's the impact we have. It's not the FaceTime hours. If we need to leave it for 30 to manage the balance of life, giving the benefit that Charlotte is such a hard worker, she will figure out how to do her work for impact, right? So reducing some of that stress load. The other piece, again, is being mindful of really checking in with Charlotte and seeing like how is she adjusting, right? So it's the sort of the reinvestment also in like, I see you have all this value, and what do you need in this moment? Because it's a moment in time, right? That's important. The
Yeah.
other though is that we can also know, and we have seen proven as a strategy, that for Charlotte, a lot of what's happening because of the mental load is that with some work on limiting beliefs, we can start to sort of help Charlotte to lessen a bit of that mental load and to sort of reframe what is going to serve her and her work. Where will she
Yeah.
say yes and no to? How can she embody meaning, like not just what she says, but through how she has a calm and like firm presence? How do I set this boundary? And then when do I delegate? And then
Yeah.
also, when do I ask for help? All of these things have to do, and they're sort of like layered, aren't they, Ellie? It's not like one solution. So
No.
it comes down to culture, and it also comes down to working with that individual in a new like situation to manage the stress and some of those sort of maybe conditioned responses. Because maybe Charlotte also is like, I can do it all. It has to be the best. It has to be perfect, when actually that's just a conditioned tendency where we can help her to find what is really good and
Yeah.
there's no balance, right? So anyway, if anyone relates to this, and I'm sure many people do, we'd really like to hear how your organization maybe helped overcome this battle, what they're doing, also things that you found that you would have loved some help with, and we're happy to share our white paper, just outlining what our interviews shared with over 50 women in tech. So thank you for joining today.
Thanks a lot. See you soon, guys.